Captain Rhiannon Vale stood at the viewport of the Terran diplomatic vessel, watching the swirling violet storms of Nexus Prime beneath. The atmospheric disturbances that made this planet nearly uninhabitable to most species were exactly what had drawn the Carveran Empire here, and why Earth couldn't afford to let them claim it unopposed. "Ma'am, we're picking up an incoming vessel," Lieutenant Park reported from his sensor station. "Energy signature matches Carveran design. It's larger than anything we've encountered before." Rhiannon straightened her dress uniform, dark hair pulled back severely from her face. At 34, she was young for a diplomatic mission of this magnitude, but her track record of successful first contact scenarios had earned her this assignment, though none of those had involved the notoriously aggressive Carveran. "On screen," she ordered, and the viewport shifted to show the approaching ship. Its obsidian surface seemed to drink in the light, organic curves suggesting it had been grown rather than built. As they watched, it extruded what appeared to be landing gear, though they were still high in the upper atmosphere. "They're hailing us," Park announced, his fingers dancing over the controls. "Audio and visual, except," Rhiannon said, squaring her shoulders. The viewport flickered and revealed the bridge of the Carveran vessel. Her first thought was that the stories hadn't done them justice. The alien commander stood nearly 8 feet tall, his scaled skin a deep crimson that shifted to black at his extremities. Bony ridges framed yellow eyes with vertical pupils, and when he smiled, she caught glimpses of metallic teeth. But it was the creature beside him that drew her attention. It resembled a cross between a panther and a dragon, its body sleek but clearly powerful, with crystalline growths protruding from its shoulders and spine. Its eyes glowed with obvious intelligence as it regarded her through the video feed. "I am Warlord Krovax of the Carveran Empire," the commander's voice rumbled through the speakers. "And this is Shadowma, my bonded hunter." "I trust you understand the significance of his presence," Rhiannon did. The Carveran were known for their bioengineered companion beasts, and to bring one to diplomatic talks was either a grave insult or a mark of serious respect. The problem was knowing which. "I am Captain Rhiannon Vale, representing the Terran Alliance," she replied evenly. "We're honored by Shadowma's presence, though I hope his hunting skills won't be necessary today." Krovax's ridge, lined brow lifted slightly. "You know of our traditions." "I make it my business to understand those I meet with," Rhiannon said. "Though I admit, much of what we know about the Carveran comes from secondhand sources. I look forward to learning the truth directly." The warlord studied her for a long moment, then laughed, a sound like grinding stones that made several of her bridge crew flinch. "Careful, diplomatic one. Your words walk the line between flattery and challenge. Perhaps both have their place in honest dialogue," she countered. Shadowma made a sound somewhere between a growl and a purr, and Krovax's expression shifted to one of intrigue. "Indeed, my beast seems fascinated by you, Captain Vale. He says your scent carries no fear." "Should it?" She met his gaze steadily. "I was under the impression we came here to talk, not to threaten." "And yet you brought a warship to these negotiations." His tone remained amused, but there was steel beneath it. "As did you," she pointed out. "Though mine is officially classified as a diplomatic vessel, with enough firepower to level a small continent," he noted. "We've studied your capabilities." "Just as we've studied yours," Rhiannon replied. "Shall we dispense with the posturing and discuss why we're really here?" Krovax leaned forward, his massive frame filling the screen. "Very well, Captain Vale. Let us meet on neutral ground, the surface. Bring your security detail if you wish, though I warn you, one wrong move and my beast will tear you apart." "Understood," she said calmly. "Though I should warn you as well, humans have survived worse threats than teeth and claws. We're still here to tell about it." The warlord's laugh boomed again, but this time it held genuine appreciation. "I begin to see why they sent you, Captain. Very well, transmitting coordinates now. We descend in 1 hour. Try to survive the storms." The transmission cut off, leaving Rhiannon staring at the massive Carveran ship. Behind her, she could hear her crew letting out collectively held breaths. "Ma'am," Park ventured, "are you sure about this? The surface storms are exactly why this planet is so valuable," she finished. "The mineral formations in those clouds could revolutionize FTL travel. We can't let the Carveran claim exclusive rights. And if they decide to claim them by force?" Rhiannon checked her sidearm, Not standard diplomatic procedure, but nothing about this mission was standard. Then, we remind them why humanity survived first contact with 18 different hostile species. She turned to her security chief. Commander Reeves, assemble your team. Full environment suits, but weapons concealed. Let's not give them an excuse. As her crew prepared for descent, Rhiannon studied the swirling storms below. The Carveran weren't known for their subtlety or patience. If Warlord Krovax had chosen to meet rather than simply attack, there had to be a reason. She intended to find out what it was, assuming Shadow Maw didn't decide to make a meal of her first. The next hour would prove interesting indeed. The descent through Nexus Prime's atmosphere tested every advancement in human engineering. Violet lightning struck their shuttle repeatedly, each impact making the shields flare desperately. Through the maelstrom, Rhiannon could see the Carveran vessel moving with uncanny grace, as if the storms themselves made way for it. The ship is technically alive, growing and modifying its external structure as needed. She checked her environment suit seals one final time. Another reason we can't let them claim this planet. Imagine what they could do with unlimited access to these energy patterns. The landing zone was a relatively stable plateau of black glass, formed by lightning strikes fusing the mineral-rich soil. As their shuttle touched down, Rhiannon saw Shadow Maw leap from the Carveran vessel while it was still 30 feet up, landing with predatory grace despite his massive size. Showing off, Reeves muttered. Everything they do has purpose, Rhiannon corrected. They're demonstrating their physical superiority. Expected, but not necessarily hostile. She activated her suit's atmospheric shield. Let's show them humans have our own strengths. They emerged into chaos. The storms raged around their protected landing zone, creating a wall of violet energy that made it seem like they stood inside the eye of a perpetual hurricane. The Carveran delegation approached, their own environmental protection taking the form of what appeared to be living armor that shifted and flowed with their movements. Shadow Maw paced beside Krovax, crystalline growths pulsing with inner light. Up close, the beast was even more impressive, easily the size of an earth tiger, but with an alien grace that defied easy comparison. Its eyes fixed on Rhiannon with unnerving intelligence. Your descent was impressive, Krovax rumbled as they met in the center of the plateau. Most species require significantly more shielding to survive these storms. Humanity learned early to adapt or die, Rhiannon replied. We're stubborn that way, so we've heard. The warlord gestured to the violence surrounding them. Beautiful, isn't it? The raw power, the pure chaos of creation itself. Do you know why we chose this place, Captain Vale? The storms generate unique energy signatures, she said. The mineral content in the clouds creates natural quantum fluctuations that could revolutionize faster than light travel. Krovax's ridge-lined brow lifted. You've studied this world extensively. As have you. The question is, why reveal your interest now? The Carveran aren't known for announcing their territorial ambitions. Shadow Maw made that strange growl purr again, moving closer to Rhiannon. Her security team tensed, but she held up a hand to keep them still. The beast circled her slowly, its crystalline growths pulsing in rhythm with the surrounding storms. Fascinating, Krovax mused. He says your energy patterns resonate oddly, almost like... He trailed off, his yellow eyes narrowing. Like what? Rhiannon prompted, though she had a suspicion she knew what he discovered. Like someone who has been exposed to quantum harmonics before. The warlord's voice carried new intensity. You've found other sites. We've found many things, she replied carefully, just as I'm sure the Empire has its own discoveries it prefers to keep private. Shadow Maw completed his circuit around her, then did something unprecedented. He sat directly between Rhiannon and Krovax, his position almost protective rather than threatening. The Carveran delegation muttered among themselves, but Krovax silenced them with a gesture. In 10,000 years, he said slowly, I have never seen a shadow hunter behave this way with an outsider. Perhaps, Rhiannon suggested, that says something about the possibility of cooperation between our species. Or perhaps, a new voice cut in, it says something about human deception. A female Carveran stepped forward, her scales a deeper crimson than Krovax's, almost black in the strange light. Warlord, the human vessel's energy readings suggest active scanning of our biosignatures. They're probing our defenses even as we speak. Standard diplomatic protocol, Rhiannon countered smoothly. Just as I'm sure you're scanning us, trust requires verification after all. The female, whose insignia marked her as a science director, hissed softly. You speak of trust while hiding the truth of your quantum exposure. How many of our sacred sites have you desecrated? Vexara, Kovacs warned, but Rhiannon was already responding. Sacred sites. She kept her tone curious rather than confrontational. Interesting choice of words. We consider them scientific anomalies, but you're suggesting they have religious significance. Shadowmaw's crystalline growths flared suddenly, and both Carverin stepped back. The beast rose, moving to stand fully between the two delegations, its posture somehow managing to seem both protective and warning. Enough, Kovacs commanded. Vexara returned to the ship. Captain Vale, I believe we need to continue this discussion somewhere more private. Sir, Commander Reeves protested. But Rhiannon had already made her decision. Agreed, she said. Though I suggest neutral ground, my shuttle has a secure conference room. Bold, Kovacs rumbled, inviting a Carverin warlord and his hunter onto your vessel. No bolder than you revealing the religious significance of these quantum sites, she countered. We all take calculated risks in the name of progress. The warlord studied her for a long moment, then barked a laugh that even the storms couldn't drown out. You continue to surprise me, Captain Vale. Very well, lead on, though remember my earlier warning about wrong moves. Of course, Rhiannon smiled beneath her atmospheric shield, though you might want to tell Shadowmaw that. He seems to have decided I'm not the threat here. As if to prove her point, the beast fell into step beside her as they walked toward the shuttle, leaving both delegations to follow in their wake. The violet storms raged around them, but in that moment, Rhiannon felt the first real hope that this mission might succeed. Assuming, of course, that Science Director Vexara's obvious hostility didn't derail everything before they could begin. The shuttle's conference room felt cramped with Shadowmaw's massive form taking up one corner, but Rhiannon found his presence oddly reassuring. The beast's crystalline growths pulsed in harmony with the storms outside, creating shifting patterns of light across the tactical displays. Your exposure to quantum harmonics, Kovacs began without preamble. It was deliberate, wasn't it? Rhiannon met his gaze steadily. Yes, we discovered early that human neural patterns could resonate with certain quantum frequencies. It allows us to sense things that our instruments might miss. Blasphemy, Vexara spat from the doorway. Despite Kovacs' earlier dismissal, the science director had insisted on attending. The sacred harmonics are not meant for lesser species. And yet, Rhiannon noted, your shadow hunters use similar principles. Those crystal formations aren't just decorative, are they? They're quantum receivers. Shadowmaw's growl purr confirmed her theory, and Kovacs' expression shifted to one of genuine respect. You are dangerously well-informed, Captain Vale. Knowledge is survival, she replied. Especially when dealing with species more technologically advanced than ourselves. Is that what you think we are? The warlord leaned forward, his massive frame making the reinforced chair creak. More advanced. In some ways, Rhiannon acknowledged. Your bio-organic technology, your understanding of quantum harmonics, they're beyond our current capabilities, but humans have our own strengths, such as adaptation, innovation. We take what works from every species we encounter and make it our own. We learn, we grow, we evolve. Vexara moved further into the room, her scales darkening with emotion. You steal. You corrupt. The sacred harmonics require generations of preparation, yet you simply inject yourselves with quantum resonance and claim understanding. We understand enough to know they're not just energy patterns, Rhiannon said quietly. They're connections, links between different points in space-time, different levels of reality itself. Your people worship them. We study them. Both approaches have value. Shadowmaw rose suddenly, his crystalline growths flaring bright enough to make everyone shield their eyes. When the light faded, the beast stood before a tactical display showing a map of known quantum sites throughout the galaxy. He's never done that before, Kovacs muttered, studying the display. The markers, they form a pattern. We noticed that too, Rhiannon confirmed. But we could never understand the underlying logic. Your people's religious texts might hold the key. You dare suggest sharing sacred knowledge with outsiders? Vexara's hand moved to a weapon concealed in her living armor. "I suggest," Rhiannon replied calmly, "that the universe itself is trying to tell us something. These sights, these quantum harmonics, they're not random. They're not even naturally occurring. They're a message, aren't they? The tension in the room could have been cut with a knife." Krovax's expression had gone completely still, while Vexara's scales had darkened to almost pure black. "How?" the science director demanded. "How could you know that?" "Because humans aren't the only ones who experimented with quantum exposure," Rhiannon revealed. "We found records, fragments of other species' attempts to understand these sights. Most died in the process, but we survived. And in surviving, we began to see patterns. The harmonics aren't just energy, they're language. Ancient, complex, but definitely artificial." Shadow Mom moved to her side, his crystalline growth synchronizing with her own quantum-enhanced neural patterns. The tactical display shifted, overlaying new data onto the star map. "Impossible," Vexara breathed. "The beast is sharing sacred vision with an outsider." "No," Krovax corrected, his voice filled with wonder. "The beast is completing a connection that was meant to be made. Look at the patterns now." The overlay data had transformed the random-seeming distribution of quantum sights into something else. A vast, galaxy-spanning network of interconnected nodes. Some active, some dormant, but all clearly part of a single vast system. "This is why you really came here," Rhiannon said to Krovax. "Not just for the storms or the mineral wealth. Nexus Prime is a nexus point, a place where multiple quantum threads converge. And you," the warlord replied, "are the first non-Carveran I've met who could possibly help us understand what that means." He turned to Vexara. "The ancient texts speak of a time when different species would unite to unlock the harmonic secrets. Perhaps we were too quick to dismiss humans as unworthy." The science director's scales had begun to lighten, but her expression remained hostile. "The texts also speak of false guides and corrupted paths. This human's presence here cannot be coincidence." "Nothing about this is coincidence," Rhiannon agreed. "Your people's religious understanding and our scientific approach, they're two halves of the same whole. The quantum harmonics led us here to this moment, to this choice." "Choice?" Vexara demanded. "To work together," Rhiannon said simply, "or to fight over resources we don't fully understand, to share knowledge or hoard it, to evolve or stagnate." Shadow Moss crystals pulsed again, and this time the energy patterns formed distinct symbols in the air between them. Ancient glyphs that both humans and Carveran had found carved at quantum sites throughout the galaxy. "The beast has made his choice," Krovax observed, "and I find myself inclined to agree with him." He rose, towering over the tactical display. "But our laws are clear. If you wish access to sacred knowledge, you must prove yourself worthy through traditional trials." "What kind of trials?" Rhiannon asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. "Combat," Vexara said, her scales rippling with anticipation. "Against a champion of my choosing. And if I refuse, then you leave this planet immediately," Krovax stated. "And any future human interference with quantum sites will be considered an act of war." Rhiannon studied the tactical display, the vast network of quantum connections spanning the galaxy. Whatever message was hidden in those ancient harmonics, it could change everything. Scientific understanding, faster than light travel, perhaps even the nature of reality itself. "I accept," she said. "Name your champion." Vexara's smile showed too many metallic teeth. "Oh, I think we can arrange something suitable. Something that will prove once and for all whether humans truly belong in this grand design of yours." As if in response, the storms outside intensified, violet lightning casting strange shadows through the shuttle's windows. Shadow Moss crystals pulsed in rhythm with the thunder, and Rhiannon felt her own quantum-enhanced senses resonating in response. The trial would either open new paths of cooperation between their species or end in disaster. But one way or another, she intended to prove that humanity deserved its place among the stars. The Carveran combat arena had been carved directly into the crystalline bedrock of Nexus Prime, its walls refracting the storm's violet lightning in hypnotic pattern. Rhiannon stood in the preparation chamber, watching her quantum-enhanced neural patterns create subtle ripples in the energy field around her. "This is suicide," Commander Reeves argued, helping her check the seals on her combat suit. The Carveran haven't lost a ritual combat in over 3 centuries. Then we're overdue to break their streak, Rhiannon replied, flexing her hands to test the suit's responsiveness. The lightweight armor was a hybrid of human engineering and salvaged quantum technology, designed to amplify her natural resonance with the harmonics. A low growl announced Shadowmaw's arrival. The beast padded into the chamber, ignoring Reeves' obvious discomfort. Its crystalline growths pulsed with unusual intensity, and Rhiannon felt her own quantum sense responding. "You're trying to tell me something, aren't you?" she murmured. The beast's only response was to touch its forehead to her hand, creating a brief surge of connected consciousness that left her gasping. "Captain?" Reeves stepped forward in concern, but Rhiannon waved him off. "I'm fine, but I think I just understood why Vexara is so afraid of human involvement." She turned to her security chief. "Run a deep scan of the arena's crystalline structure. Look for any signs of artificial modification." Before Reeves could respond, the chamber door opened to admit Krovac. The warlord's living armor seemed more agitated than usual, its surface rippling with barely contained energy. "Your opponent has been chosen," he announced without preamble, "though I suspect you already knew who it would be." Rhiannon nodded. "Vexara herself. The sacred texts require that challenges to religious authority be answered personally by those making the challenge. You continue to surprise me with your knowledge of our ways," Krovac rumbled. "Though in this case, that knowledge may prove fatal. Vexara is not just a science director. She's a quantum warrior," Rhiannon finished. "One of your bioengineered elite who can manipulate the harmonics directly. That's why she's so threatened by human quantum exposure. We achieved naturally what your people spent generations engineering." Shadowmaw's growl took on a warning tone, and Krovac's expression darkened. "There's more. The arena's crystals have been tampered with," Rhiannon confirmed, "designed to amplify Carveran quantum signatures while dampening others. Vexara doesn't just want to win. She wants to prove human quantum adaptation is inferior. If you know this, why continue with the trial?" Krovac demanded. "No one would blame you for withdrawing when faced with such irregularities, because she's not the only one hiding something." Rhiannon met the warlord's yellow eyes steadily. "Those ancient glyphs Shadowmaw showed us, you recognized them, didn't you? Not from religious text, but from somewhere else." The massive alien went very still. Even his living armor seemed to freeze in place. "What do you know?" "I know that quantum harmonics don't just connect points in space. They connect points in time. I know that somewhere out there, another version of humanity has already made contact with your people. And I know that contact didn't end well." Shadowmaw's crystals flared in confirmation, and Krovac sank onto a nearby bench, making it creak under his weight. "How long have you known?" "I suspected when I saw how quickly your people moved to claim Nexus Prime. The Carveran are aggressive, but you're not usually this direct. You're trying to prevent something you've seen through quantum echoes from another timeline. The harmonics show many possible futures," Krovac admitted. "In most of them, human quantum adaptation leads to complications. Your species evolves too quickly, becomes too powerful to control. Some of my people believe the only solution is to prevent that evolution entirely. By proving we're unworthy of the knowledge," Rhiannon concluded, "which is why Vexara is so ready to challenge me. If I die in ritual combat, it sets a precedent. Humans are officially barred from accessing quantum sites. And if you somehow win," Krovac's tone suggested he considered this unlikely, "then we prove that humanity's approach to quantum harmonics is valid, that evolution and adaptation are just as legitimate as engineering and control." She checked her suit's power levels one final time. "That's what the ancient message is trying to tell us, isn't it?" The quantum network wasn't created by a single species, but by many working together, each contributing their own unique perspective. The warlord studied her for a long moment. "You understand that even if you're right, I cannot interfere with the trial. Our laws are absolute in this regard." "I understand," Rhiannon smiled grimly. "But maybe you can answer one question. In those quantum echoes you've seen, did any version of humanity ever win this trial?" "No," Krovac admitted. "But—" He glanced at Shadowmaw, who had moved to stand protectively near Rhiannon. None of those versions had my beast's approval. Perhaps that changes the equation. Warning tones echoed through the chamber. The trial was about to begin. Reeves made one final plea. "Captain, please. There has to be another way." "There isn't," Rhiannon said firmly. "Sometimes you have to risk everything to change anything." She turned to Krovax. "Tell your science director I'm ready." The warlord nodded solemnly. "Fight well, Captain Vale. And may the harmonics guide your path." As he left, Shadowma touched his forehead to Rhiannon's hand once more. This time the quantum connection was clearer. She saw flashes of movement, combat patterns, ways to use the arena's crystalline structure that Vexara wouldn't expect. "Thank you," she whispered to the beast. "Though your mistress might not approve of you helping the opposition." Shadowma's only response was that familiar growl, purr, but his meaning was clear. In matters of quantum harmonics, there was no opposition, only the search for truth. The chamber doors began to open, revealing the arena beyond. Gao-prow. Violet lightning played across surfaces that had been carefully engineered to give every advantage to her opponent. But as Rhiannon stepped forward to meet her fate, she felt her quantum-enhanced senses expanding, connecting with the very storms that raged above. Win or lose, this trial would prove once and for all whether humanity deserved its place in the cosmic design. And Rhiannon Vale intended to prove it in spectacular fashion. The arena erupted with quantum energy the moment Rhiannon stepped inside. Crystalline formations pulsed with power, creating interference patterns that made her enhanced senses scream in warning. Across the circular space, Vexara emerged from her own preparation chamber, her living armor now transformed into something more predatory, with crystalline growths mimicking Shadowma's. "Impressive adaptation," Rhiannon called out, noting how the science director's modifications resonated with the arena's energy field. "Though copying Shadowhunter biology seems a bit desperate, I'm improving upon nature," Vexara replied, her scales shifting through shades of crimson and black. "Unlike humans who merely stumble upon power they don't understand." The arena's crystalline walls began to pulse faster, channeling the storm's energy into patterns that made Rhiannon's head spin. She could feel the quantum harmonics being twisted, forced into unnatural configurations that threatened to overwhelm her neural enhancements. But Shadowma's final lesson had prepared her for this. Instead of fighting the disorientation, she let her consciousness expand into it, becoming one with the chaotic frequencies. The universe, she had learned, was not meant to be controlled, only understood. Vexara struck first, launching herself across the arena with impossible speed. Her armor's crystalline components left trails of quantum distortion in her wake, designed to shred through any defensive harmonics Rhiannon might attempt to generate. But Rhiannon wasn't trying to defend. As Vexara's attack reached her, she let her quantum sense merge with the storm above, using the natural harmonics to step sideways through probability itself. The science director's strike passed through empty air as Rhiannon seemed to fade and reappear 3 meters away. "Impossible," Vexara snarled. "The arena's dampeners only work on artificial quantum signatures." Rhiannon finished, allowing herself a small smile. "But I'm not using technology to manipulate the harmonics. I'm letting them work through me." The revelation seemed to enrage Vexara further. She launched a series of attacks that combined physical combat with quantum disruption. Each strike meant to sever Rhiannon's connection to the natural harmonics. The arena's crystals pulsed in sync with her movements, amplifying her engineered powers to devastating levels. But for every attack, Rhiannon found a counter in the storm's natural patterns. Where Vexara tried to impose order, Rhiannon embraced chaos. When the science director attempted to trap her in a quantum cage, she used the arena's own crystalline resonance to shatter the construct. "You're fighting the harmonics," Rhiannon called out as they circled each other, "trying to force them into submission. But that's not what they're meant for. You know nothing of their meaning." Vexara's armor was beginning to show signs of strain, its biological components unable to maintain the unnatural frequencies she was demanding of them. The sacred harmonics are meant to elevate worthy species, not validate primitive accidents. Then why did they lead us here? Rhiannon asked, deflecting another quantum-enhanced strike. Why do they respond to human neural patterns? Why does Shadow Maw recognize our potential? The beast is confused, Vexara spat, though uncertainty had crept into her voice. As are you, if you think this display of quantum trickery proves anything. It proves that there's more than one path to understanding, Rhiannon replied. She could feel the storm's energy building above them, the natural harmonics reaching a crescendo that made the arena's crystals vibrate in sympathy. The ancient message, the quantum network, it wasn't created by beings who sought to control the harmonics. It was created by those who learned to flow with them. As if in response to her words, the storm broke through the arena's shielding. Violet lightning crashed down, but instead of destroying the facility, it merged with the crystalline structures in ways that transformed their carefully engineered resonance. Suddenly, the quantum dampeners weren't just failing, they were becoming conduits for something far more powerful. Vexara's armor began to malfunction as the natural harmonics overwhelmed its artificial patterns. The science director stumbled, her enhanced abilities flickering like a failing light. What are you doing? I'm not doing anything, Rhiannon said softly. The harmonics are showing us the truth. Look, the storm's energy had created a quantum projection above the arena, the same ancient glyphs they had seen before, but now their meaning was clear. They showed different species, different approaches to understanding the universe, all flowing together in a grand design that transcended any single perspective. No, Vexara whispered. But there was more awe than denial in her voice. The sacred text never spoke of this. Because some truths can't be written down, Krovax's voice boomed from the observation level. They must be experienced. Shadow Maw appeared in the arena, his crystalline growths pulsing in perfect harmony with the storm. The beast moved to stand between Rhiannon and Vexara, but this time his posture wasn't protective, it was inviting. Understanding dawned in Rhiannon's mind. The trial was never meant to prove superiority, she realized. It was meant to prove the possibility of synthesis. She stepped forward, extending her hand to her fallen opponent. Your engineering, our adaptation, they're both part of the same journey. The quantum harmonics don't care how we reach understanding, only that we do. Vexara stared at the offered hand for a long moment. Above them, the ancient glyphs continued their dance, showing possibilities that neither of their species had imagined alone. Finally, the science director reached up and clasped Rhiannon's hand. The moment they touched, their quantum signatures merged. Engineered precision met adaptive chaos, creating something entirely new. The arena's crystals sang with resonance as two different approaches to understanding the harmonics found common ground. The trial is complete, Krovax declared, and its outcome is clear. The human speaks truth. The path forward lies not in competition, but in cooperation. As the storm began to calm, Rhiannon helped Vexara to her feet. The science director's scales had settled into a new pattern. Neither aggressive crimson nor defensive black, but a deep purple that matched the quantum harmonics themselves. Perhaps, Vexara admitted, there are some things our ancient texts failed to consider. And perhaps, Rhiannon replied with a smile, humans have more to learn about proper respect for quantum forces. We could teach each other. Shadow Maw's satisfied growl echoed through the arena as the beast nuzzled both women, his crystals pulsing with approval. Above them, through the hole in the arena's ceiling, the storms of Nexus Prime had begun to form new patterns, neither chaos nor order, but a perfect balance of both. The future that the Carveran had feared, of humanity's quantum evolution leading to conflict, had been transformed. In its place lay a new possibility. Two species working together to unlock the mysteries of the quantum network, each contributing their unique perspective to understanding the universe's greatest secrets. As Rhiannon looked up at the violet sky, she felt the harmonics singing through her enhanced consciousness. The message was clear. This was just the beginning of a journey that would reshape not just their species, but the very fabric of reality itself. And somewhere in the quantum echoes of possibility, she sensed other timelines shifting. Other versions of this moment aligning with a better future. The storm's voice spoke of unity, of evolution, of paths converging into something greater than any single species could achieve alone. The universe, it seemed, had been waiting for precisely this moment. when humanity's adaptive chaos and the Carverans' engineered precision could finally work as one.